Hello, class. Welcome to Project 3. In this module, we're going to be exploring linear perspective, which is a geometric mathematical system that helps us represent three-dimensional objects in space on a piece of paper or on a 2D surface. It's really good for architecture because of the geometric forms like cubes and rectangles that we see here. But don't worry, there's no real math involved. It's mostly just your ruler and some structural guidelines that you'll learn about um, this module. So we've got some tasks to complete. You've got the overview, which you're doing right now. We have an introduction to linear perspective. We have a quiz that covers the information in the linear intro to linear perspective. We've got some exercises that help us learn how to do linear perspective. And then for our project, this module, we are going to do some world building. So the project is called Constructed Environments, World Building with Linear Perspective. It should be really fun, and it will allow your imagination to sort of soar the heights of whatever world you can create, so you can be the sort of master of your own world, like Giovanni Battista Piranesi here, who often recreated ancient worlds from Rome, or imagined fantastical architecture, and a lot of other artists that did similar things. So we'll head to the next button here, and this is the introduction to linear perspective, that tells you all about linear perspective, both some of the technical aspects, and then it shows you a lot of artworks throughout art history by both historical artists and contemporary artists on what is linear perspective. So you can see here in this famous fresco painting by Raphael, some of the main concepts that we're dealing with here. Horizon line, vanishing point right here, and then orthogonals that help organize the angles in the space so it looks like it's receding off into the distance. And then there's a lot of more art history here about, how artists in Europe addressed space and architecture before the development of linear perspective, and you can kind of see lines are going all over the place here. Then there are other cultures too, like Chinese culture or Middle Eastern cultures, that develop different approaches to creating space that are just as effective and valuable for what they accomplish. And then we kind of go into here to the invention of it when it was first written down and put into artwork in the Renaissance. So read all of this really closely. All of this content is in part of the quiz. So, and if I have any suggestions, you could open up the quiz. You really want, well, I shouldn't tell you this trick, but if you really want to be quick about the quiz, you could just open up the quiz in a new tab, have this open in another tab, and skim for the various topics. But, as an art historian, I think this is super interesting, and I highly recommend reading it closely. There's a lot of great artwork in here, like this Jan Vermeer painting, and you can see by the time we get into the 17th century, artists have really inhabited linear perspective to help create emotion and communicate various concepts, including optical illusions like looking up through the top of a church as though the angels of heaven are looking down upon you. And then get into the modern era just to really understand how the modern artists kind of challenge the idea, the sort of um, um, the view that linear perspective was the only and best way to make art, to recreate a window into the world. So they challenged its assumption and started breaking it down, starting with Paul Cézanne and then the development of Cubism, and then other artists that bring us more into contemporary times where we understand that perspective is as a tool and not a rule. And you see a lot of artists here that use linear perspective in various strategies. Then there's the quiz, so take the quiz. All that again is based on the previous page, the introduction to linear perspective. And then we have our exercises for this module. We're going to start by just drawing 3 cubes with 1-point perspective. And I have a very detailed video here that shows you how to do that with lots of tips and tricks. So give that a watch. And then we have a 2-point perspective demonstration, drawing 3 cubes with 2-point perspective. Again, a good video here that will walk you through it. So I'd say put on the video and have your tools out and just sort of follow along and pause as needed. And then one more exercise where I want you to draw a room in your home with 1-point perspective. I have a really good detailed video here because it's a little bit different, I think, when you're drawing from observation versus just inventing 3 cubes. So there's just some little tips and tricks and nuances and that help here in this video. And then I have some text instructions as well for you to follow along with as well, with the photographs I'm using, and then some other helpful guidelines and just instructions and ways to think about linear perspective in this module. And then the final drawing that I produced of my living room. And then the last exercise, this will be due on the first, all of these exercises will be due on the first Friday of the module week. So essentially in about a week from today, is the 2 thumbnail sketches of for your project for constructed environments, linear perspective, world building, and imagined space project. So you'll create 2 6x8 inch thumbnails and a concept paragraph for this project. So 2 compositions, 6x8 inch each. Each should reflect either a different viewpoint or different concepts or spatial emphasis. So the 2 should be different, whether that's viewpoints, concepts, types of linear perspective, or spatial emphasis. Be intentional in your orientation though. Is it landscape or is it portrait? Be sure to identify your horizon line and vanishing points, and depending on whether you're using 1 or 2-point perspective. So be clear, are you using 1 or 2-point perspective? Consider where the viewer stands in relation to the space, because that can really help enhance the impact of your piece. These sketches do not have to be perfect, but they should give me a clear idea of your direction. And then include a concept paragraph describing the world you intend to create and why. What will your world feature and which conceptual prompts are you starting from? Tell me whether you plan to use 1 or 2-point perspective. And then we'll go down here to the actual instructions. Be sure to review these instructions in very good detail before completing your sketches. There's a lot of information here. You have the option of using graphite pencils or black ballpoint pen or micron pens for this project. So if you want to stick with graphite because you're familiar with it, great. If you want to experiment with black ballpoint or micron pens, you're welcome to do that as well. If you're going to use the pens, you can watch this video here that will help introduce those to you. We've got our method, our various conceptual focus. In this project, you have a handful of conceptual prompts I want you to use as a sort of starting point for your visual investigation. So include a description of which one of these in your concept paragraph that you provide with your exercises, just so I know which one you're thinking about here. There is an originality and an appropriation clause, so be sure to read that. And then I have a lot more artworks in here that give you examples of various world building, artists that use world building in their artwork. There are some additional project requirements here for you to think about and think through, so be sure to read those in detail. Again, more artists here. Um, here's a little bit more of a review here of the thumbnail sketches, um, with a little bit of detail here. So just be sure to include your two paragraphs, your two sketches, and then your concept paragraph that help tell me what it is you plan to do so I can get a good idea and find a way to make sure I can help you, okay? Um, and then assessment criteria, learning outcomes for you. The artist statement and self-assessment is really important because you're going to submit a paragraph artist statement that describes what you did. Tell me about your world, how you use it in your perspective, and using appropriate vocabulary. And then the self-assessment and reflection on your process. And I want you to think about how you did, and you can use the refer to the critique prompts below for additional considerations. You'll see they have a bunch of critique prompts down here, and I want you to use these to engage with your peers this module. So it's a little different than the past. You're going to reflect on at least 3 questions for your peers, but also in your self-assessment, reflect on some of these as well. I think it says, yeah, just refer to the critique prompts for additional consideration so that way you can think about how you did in this project. And then standard submission, insert your image to the body of the discussion post so we can all see it without downloading it. Attach your multi-page project portfolio so I can for grading. And then the contents of that, the naming convention here helps me keep it organized. And then be sure to discuss and engage with 2 of your peers using those critique prompts down below here. Remember, this is worth 10 points of your grade, and the quality of your documentation is also worth 10 points of your grade. Again, here's the critique prompts, and that's our module. So have fun, folks. Reach out if you have any questions. I'm just a message away, and always happy to help you out. And if you want to do a Zoom meeting or anything, we can do that as well. All right, everybody. Take care, and good luck building a world.